Hey everyone! So in this video I'm going to be going over exactly how we at JavaPresse Coffee Company go about making the perfect cup of French press coffee. This recipe is going to be for an entire 34-ounce serving of coffee, so bear that in mind when we give you exact numbers and ingredients to use while doing this. So that should be enough for about 3 to 4 people. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so first step is to heat up the glass carafe before you do anything with your French press. So the reason we want to heat this up is because we want the French press to actually be hot the entire time we are brewing our coffee. This allows for us to get the absolute best extraction from our coffee beans during the time it's brewing. Okay, so I've actually preheated this water to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't have a fancy schmancy kettle, don't worry about it. You can totally just go take a pot of water, get it to a boil, and just pour it all in here, and you can heat up the glass that way. Or take it to a boil, let it wait about 30 seconds, that should be about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Or you can do the same, just take a microwavable dish and put the water in the actual microwave. Or, if you want, you could actually put the water in here and heat up the glass in the microwave. That's totally fine too. So whichever you prefer, all of those are valid, and you can go from here. But I'm going to do it this way just because this is how I was always taught. Great. So you want it to be all the way to the top, pretty much, or as far to the top as you can get. My kettle doesn't have enough water to get all the way up, but there you go. Okay. So now that it's heated, it's hot, I'm going to go ahead and just cover this up. The top part of your French press is insulated, so this is going to be really cool to the touch, so you shouldn't have to worry about any type of heat. And you're just going to push this down, and that's that. Okay? So for now, we're just going to put this to the side, and then move on to the next step, which is the grind. Alrighty, so now that you've filled up your French press with hot water, it's time to move on to the most important part of the process, which is getting your grind right. So for a French press coffee, you're going to want to have anywhere from a medium coarse to a coarse setting. If you go too fine, you're going to let all those particles fall through the filters and you're going to end up with a really sludgy cup. And if you go too coarse, you're going to end up with a weaker cup of coffee. So it's pretty important to get your grind right. And for that matter, it's really important to get a consistent grind because you don't want some fine particles and some coarse particles letting all the way through. Now, using a blade grinder is not optimal for French press because it's going to leave a lot of really inconsistent chunks in your grind, which is going to lead to that flavor distortion that I just discussed with you. So for that reason, we recommend using a burr grinder. In-house, we use a burr grinder. This is actually one of our own. And it's a manual burr grinder, so you get to grind your coffee right before you brew instead of brewing it in a big electric grinder, you know, the night before and storing it, because we all know what that does to your coffee's taste. So yeah, so this allows you to get really fresh coffee right before you brew it, and you can brew as much as you need at one given time. It's also really quiet, so you don't really wake anybody up. So that's why it's my preferred method of brewing. So for one 34-ounce serving of the French press, we recommend anywhere from 56 to 80 grams of coffee, just depending on how strong you like it. I preferably like it in the 80 grams of coffee, just because I really like it strong. But I know that there are some people on our team that swear by the 56. So you play around with that, but that's generally the range you want to go with. And you're going to fill the water all the way up to the top, and I'll show you that in the next step. So I've already measured out the appropriate amount of coffee, which is about 56 grams for this recipe. And I've put it in here, okay? And so I've already set that up. Now, the next thing to do is to set your grinder up for the appropriate settings. So for those, I know a lot of you have our manual coffee grinder, so I'm going to teach you how to set it up for the French press. So in our manual coffee grinder, turn the knob all the way to the right, and then turn it 15 clicks to the left. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? Now, that's my preferred setting. Like I said, play around with that, okay? And you can find one that works best for you. So now, I'm going to go ahead and grind away. This is going to take a couple minutes, so I'm going to grind as quickly as possible, and then I'll meet you guys on the next step. Alright? Cheers. Alrighty everyone, so now we're going to go ahead and actually start the brew process. So you have your coarsely ground coffee that we just ground, and you have your water, which is heated to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, as a general rule of thumb when considering coffee to water ratio, you're going to want to go with about 1 tablespoon of coffee for every 4 fluid ounces of water. Okay, so that's just a good estimate for you to start out at in case you want to brew less or more using your French press. So now we have all these things. The carafe is clearly already filled with water because we wanted to keep it hot while we were preparing all the other materials. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the water out. Great. Okay. So the carafe is hot and it is not have any water in it. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take the ground coffee and just pour it in. Okay. Cool. So the next step is to go ahead and wet the ground coffee. Okay, so I'm going to fill it up roughly about I'm going to go roughly to the bottom of the handle. That's generally where I like to keep. Okay, so now we have this. Now the next step is to actually use a wooden or you can use metal. I prefer not to use metal just because I'm afraid I'm going to scratch the glass or something along those lines. So just to be as a caution, I like to use a wooden spoon. But like I said, you can use metal, just be careful. Give it a nice little stir just to make sure all the coffee gets wet. Okay. Now, we wait about 30 seconds. So this process is called blooming your coffee. Essentially what happens is all of your coffee, as soon as it's ground, there's a lot of undesirable tastes and gases that are just waiting to escape from a crushed coffee bean. So by exposing the ground coffee to extreme high temperatures and water, you actually allow a lot of those CO2s and undesirable flavors and gases to escape your ground coffee and just leave behind the pure stuff that leads to a great tasting cup. Okay, so this is pretty common practice for any style of brewing. So whether you're doing a pour over, a drip machine, a Chemex, really, like I said, any type of coffee, AeroPress for that matter, you're gonna want to bloom your coffee. So we're gonna let it sit for maybe another 10 seconds, and just like I said, just let it sit. So give it a couple seconds. Okay, so the next thing, all we're going to do now is we're going to fill this up all the way to about the top of the chrome lining on the outside. Okay, so that's a good basis. So I'm going to continue pouring. You want to be careful with your hot water as well. You definitely don't want to hurt yourself and burn yourself by any means. Okay. So I'm going to pour this all the way to the top. Now I'm using a gooseneck kettle for this right here, which is mostly used for pour over brewing. But so if you don't have a gooseneck kettle, really don't worry about it. You can use any type of tea kettle, or if you just want to heat up a pitcher and pour it in there, that's totally fine. The manner in which you pour water into your carafe really doesn't matter for the French press. That's what makes it so great, actually. It's the ability to brew things so simply with this machine. So now I'm going to give it another simple stir, just to make sure everything gets widely dispersed. Okay, great. Alrighty, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on top, hold it down, and start the timer for about 3.5 minutes. Okay. So over the 3.5 minute volume, you're gonna pretty much can do whatever you want. So this is the waiting period. I brew my coffee in the mornings, and I'm a big fan of using the minutes that my coffee is brewing to really just take a second and do something that really makes me happy. So whether it be spending time with my family, or eating a delectable breakfast, or just taking a couple minutes to think about things that I'm thankful for, or planning out my day, whatever it may be for you, use these couple of moments to really engage in that process of appreciating what you're doing, because not a lot of people do manual brewing, and so you're special. And this is a special process, and that's why we want to make this as true to you as possible. So these couple minutes, take them and use them as you will. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Alrighty, so it's been 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes total since we allowed the coffee to brew inside of the French press, so it should be ready to go now. If you want to let it brew longer, you totally can. It's just going to be a little more bitter, so definitely play around with that and see what your taste looks like, or if you're doing something in the 3.5-4 minute span that you let the coffee brew and you want to finish it up, go ahead and finish it up. It's really not going to make that much of a difference, but roughly speaking, about 4 minutes total for brew time is what you're going to want. So the next part is actually really the fun part. It's pretty simple. Once you've allowed the coffee to brew, you're just going to go ahead and push down the plunger all the way and allow it to squeeze the bottom. Okay, depending on how much coffee you have in there, you either might be able to take this all the way down, or it's going to stop up top. But that's okay, you can just go as far as you can. And then your coffee is done. Now, you might be wondering why I have a stainless steel pour-over filter over here. I'm going to give you another little hack that we use in-house to get our French press coffee even cleaner. So this is actually one of our own pour-over coffee makers. It makes a great cup of coffee by itself, but usually I just use it to make 1 or 2 cups of coffee. When I want to drink coffee from a French press, this is kind of like my go-to move. So I'll put this on top of whichever mug I want to serve into. So if it's like a bigger vessel, this works perfectly too, because it's got a pretty wide base, so you can set it on top. So what I do is I just pour this down the sides of the filter. And it's my little trick for getting even more of the grounds out of French press coffee, because the French press coffee it's inevitable. You're gonna get some coffee grounds. So this way it's just a triple filter, if you may will, and you get to kind of just get more of those grounds out and get a really clean cup of coffee while experiencing the entire depth of flavor that you're going to get out of the French press. So this is just another hack that we use in-house. I don't know if anybody else really does this, but it's something that we started experimenting around with, and it served to make some really, really, really great coffee and a much cleaner cup. So if you feel like you don't like the grit that kind of you experience from drinking a French press coffee, because you will have some, this is another option for you to consider. Okay. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything about. I'm gonna let this drip for a little while. I can put a little more. So that's pretty much everything about brewing French press coffee that you need to know, at least to get started. There are some guidelines. If your coffee doesn't taste how you want it to taste, there's a variety of reasons, and right below this video we'll go ahead and give you a troubleshooting guide to use in case your coffee doesn't taste the way you want it to, and what you can do to improve it next time. This is an iterative process, and one that's going to be true to you, so definitely experiment around and find a recipe that works exactly for you. You and I are not the same person, and so don't feel like you need to follow this recipe to the T, okay? That's the beauty of manual brewing. You get to infuse your own creativity and your own morning rituals and the things that mean the most to you into what you're doing in the morning. So make this process your own. And if you come up with something really cool, please share with us. One last thing before I let you guys go and make some delicious French press coffee. So as you know how the French press brews, and I've explained that. So it's a simple process of putting coffee grounds in the carafe and then pouring hot water in it and letting it steep over time. Now the problem is, as you serve coffee out of this carafe, the grounds are still in there and the water is still hot. So right now, as we speak, this coffee is still brewing. So keep that in mind, because if you just want to make 1 cup of coffee and let the rest of the coffee sit in the French press, I would recommend you actually pour the rest of this coffee into like another mug or serve it immediately into like another jug or something like that, just because if you let it sit for another 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, it is going to get bitter. Just a caveat, I want to warn you, because I don't want you to experience your first cup of coffee tasting delicious and then all of a sudden you try another cup of coffee in 15 or 20 minutes and it's just not the same thing. So yeah, just wanted to give that out as a caveat, but like I said, you might like the really bitter, strong coffee that you get while you let it brew longer, but I just wanted to make that aware. So that's everything related to French press coffee. Enjoy, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks guys, have a wonderful day.